many major players in the digital space have more to do than just shoot videos, post them, and reap the rewards. There are tough questions about the impact of AI and chatbots, the future of NFTs, and the safety and security of platforms such as TikTok.
Gary Vaynerchuk has been at the forefront of social media and digital for nearly 2 decades, attracting millions of followers and major clients for his companies, VaynerX and VaynerMedia. Gary V, as he's known, is in Singapore for the first time since the pandemic, and he's with us to talk about all things tech and the impact of geopolitics as well. Gary, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, the tech space has changed a lot since the mid-2000s. Now we're sort of getting into the realms of, politics or geopolitics, security and the like. It's come a long way. I mean, the Metaverse we were talking about not too long ago.
Yes.
But now, companies like TikTok dragged into security debates and things like that. What are you seeing as sort of the biggest trends at the moment?
Look, to your point, when you have the world order that we have now with what China and America and Russia and Brazil and India, that's going to bleed into all sectors of our lives, including tech. And so, I think these companies are getting caught up in the crosshairs of bigger fights than themselves. On the flip side, this is the modern media pipes, right? Obviously, what we're doing here has been around for 100 years. These are new information pathways, but they don't have the editorial vigor or the standards that journalism had. This is just humans talking to humans at scale, and it's created a lot of amazing things. There's to hundreds of millions of marriages out on the other side of this video that happened because of this. There's a lot of joy, but there's also a lot of pain and complexity, and it's just a reflection of the human spirit, and so it's a complex time.
Yeah, indeed. There's plenty of buzz and hype around AI, chatbots, NFTs, Web 3.0, and so on. But there are also concerns, as you mentioned, about potential impact of emerging technologies. And in fact, just earlier this week, some 1,000 notable signatories came out with an open letter asking AI labs to pause for 6 months. And so where do you stand on that? Do we need to slow down?
I don't think we can slow down. If you look at the history of technology and people, whether it's been the automobile or the television or the radio or the printing press, new technologies are scary because they completely change the world. I'm empathetic to why people are trying to slow down AI because it is one of the most profound technologies that has ever happened in the human race. I think the problem is these technologies are quite open, right? The internet, the blockchain, these things are open. So you come out and say, hey, you don't do this, AI labs, but that doesn't stop the 40,000 other people that are currently working on the same exact thing. And so I think it's complex times. I also, and this is a very important point, I'm very optimistic about the human spirit. There was a day and age where the gun was invented and the world said, this is gonna be the end. We're all going to just shoot each other. And yet here we are. The atomic bomb was invented, right? You would think 70 years later after it's invented that it hasn't been used since. There's something that we underestimate about the human spirit that is a challenge, especially in news cycles like this. And so I'm not sure. The truth is I'm really genuinely not sure. But I can tell you this, AI will be prevalent in every single person's lives for the rest of our lives.
Well, the gun and the atomic bomb we'll leave aside for now. I mean, many would argue that the world would be a much better place if they hadn't been invented.
But I want to jump on it for just one second. But they were invented.
Yes. And we can't go back from that.
And to your point, I would have been on the side of like, oh, the world would have been way worse than it actually is because of those inventions. And so I think there's a real important conversation about humanity and its incredible strength.
Okay, well, coming back to sort of the AI argument and this petition, Elon Musk, Apple founder Steve Wozniak, some of the big industry players that are sort of flagging their concerns. What is it that's got them so spooked? What is it they're afraid of?
Probably the unknown. Like, anybody who's watching right now that's really played with ChatGPT or things, Midjourney, some of these platforms, it is shocking. For me, I remember the first time I used a search engine in the mid-90s, and I could not comprehend that I did not have to go to the library and drive 20 minutes, that I could, it was, I couldn't wrap my head around it. Some of the things we're seeing that AI is doing is profound. And so I think they're shook by, wait a minute, if this is how it's working right now, and it's this strong now, and we know the concept is that it just gets stronger, do we really have a grasp on where this is going? So I think it's very thoughtful. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with, one's opinions, business interests. Humans are humans. So I think it's the unknown of the sheer ceiling of AI, considering that the floor that we're in right now is profound.
Indeed. And Gary, sometimes it feels like the new technologies or standards, rules, they seem to be released almost on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
The TikTok bans and also Twitter upheaval and so on. I mean, what would these changes mean for modern marketing industry, ad industry, and how should brands and companies react to them?
That is in reality where I do spend most of my energy and expertise. And I think the reality there is attention. Consumer attention is actually the currency that every brand should be looking at. The clothes we're wearing, the things we buy, those brands want to actually communicate to us so that we consider buying them. Obviously, 100 years ago, that was writing a script for the radio because everyone sat around, listened to the radio, and it would jump in and talk, and you would consider it. Then the television came along. Obviously, commercials is well understood. But today, a staggering amount of attention is on our phones. And understanding how to buy the media, and even more importantly, how to make the pictures and the videos and the written words that work on TikTok different than what works on Instagram, different than what works on Facebook, different than what works on YouTube or WeChat or Line in Japan. That skill set of what we call contextual creative for the distribution of this unique social network that you're posting on, if one is able to master that as a Fortune 500 brand like a Tiffany's, or as an entrepreneur that's watching right now, starting their business, or as a person that wants to build up their profile, if you can master that, the grounds of opportunity are unparalleled because they don't cost money. If you wanted to get known or sell something 60 years ago, you had to buy an ad in the newspaper, the billboard, the television. The fact that you can just post very strategic creative and then the algorithm allows you to reach millions of people if you're good at it. And the algorithm's not picking it. It's not like it's TikTok or Mark Zuckerberg behind the scenes picking. It's that people, the first group of 1,000 people that see the content are responding so positively that the AI and the algorithm understands people like this, and then that's why it does well. So it's the merit of the creative that is this new profound landscape in advertising.
The barriers to entry have been lower and it's been more democratized, as you say, about how sort of people sort of get their output out there. We've discussed a lot about things that perhaps normal social media users aren't so interested in, the geopolitics of things, the security of things. I want to get to, because most people use it for entertainment, connecting with friends and things like that. Escapism, yep. You have young children. How do you guide their sort of social media use? And what are your thoughts on social media when it comes to mental health?
I think that parents have a much bigger responsibility than the conversation has been around technology over the last decade. I think many of us who are watching this, us on this table, we come from a generation where parents were really actually involved. They were willing to ground you. They were willing to not be your best friend. They were willing to be the bad guy, right? And I think modern parenting over the last 20 years has softened so dramatically that many parents are mad at TikTok and Instagram and social media without realizing they have 100% control of deleting it off their child's phone. They have 100% control of taking their child's phone away for a month if they choose to. So guiding my children, for me, it's actually paying attention and caring to what they're consuming. I grew up when my parents wouldn't let me go to a rated R movie. And so I think parenting in 2023 has become too passive, has been too conducive to being your kid's friend instead of your kid's parent. And I would argue that until we get back to full accountability, we will continue to blame politics, the mainstream media, social media, TikTok, Facebook, and we're blaming, yet every parent that's watching this right now has control because they're the parent. And so my point of view on this is parents need to step up in a significant way, be willing to be inconvenienced of their child being upset with them, and actually parent.
Gary, before we let you go, looking ahead, and how do you see your industry evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? What is the next big thing that we should be looking out for?
I think the continued emergence of social, whether governments get involved and become more regulatory against it or not, or if some go away the way Vine did or others and others emerge, the way we saw TikTok come up, That's going to continue to grow because the mobile device will continue to be a major force for the next decade. I think the other thing is streaming, connected TV, smart TVs, the television landscape. You two know this. Like, the television landscape is evolving. And so I think that's going to be a huge factor in the industry. And then finally, there was premature hype on the metaverse. You know, last year, NFTs, they were selling. Metaverse, there was nobody really there. And so I think the biggest elephant in the room, by far, is when, not if, when will we actually be spending meaningful time in the metaverse? When will most people on Earth spend an hour a day being in a metaverse environment? And if and when that happens, 5 years, 7 years, 9 years from now, 15 years, that will change everything because now the attention is in a virtual world, not in a physical world that has restraints. And I would say that at some level, we're now living in a little bit of a virtual world by being in our phone 5 hours a day. So I think the phone is actually the preview to the metaverse. Our attention is so much there, outside world. But I think that's the big looming one. But I think a continuation of what's been happening will continue to happen. Social networks and the evolution of the television, I think, are the two biggest things on the advertising industry.
And will we see your kids in the metaverse?
Oh yeah, by the way, you're gonna see yourself in the metaverse. In the next 50, 60 years, it's inconceivable to me that you won't be spending meaningful time in that environment. And I think there's gonna be pros to that and cons to that, just like everything.
All right, Gary, we'll have to leave it there.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for chatting with us this morning.
Thank you, Gary.
We've been chatting with Gary Vaynerchuk, Chairman of VaynerX and CEO of VaynerMedia.